Next Wednesday, July 26th at 10 a.m., the House Oversight Committee will hold a hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, I prefer to call them UFOs. It will be held by the Oversight Committee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs. The witnesses will be as follows. David Grush, he's a decorated former combat officer who served in Afghanistan, and he recently told the world news about his experiences serving on a UAP task force led by the U.S. Navy.
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles.
Commander David Fravor. He's a former Navy commander who shot the famous Tic Tac video that you've seen. It's on YouTube. It's 60 Minutes, did a special on it.
And about that got out, I said, dude, do you see that thing down there? And we saw this little white Tic Tac looking object.
Ryan Graves. He's a former Navy pilot. He reported multiple UAP encounters during training flights.
You know, they were out there when we took off. We'd see them, and then we go to land, they would still be out there.
Last year, the House Intelligence Committee held a hearing on UAPs. They brought in some Pentagon bureaucrats who only had two answers to the questions they were asked.
We do not have an explanation.
Or that's classified. This hearing is going to be different. We're going to have witnesses who can speak frankly to the public about their experiences. They do exist or they don't exist. They keep telling us they don't exist, but they block every opportunity for us to get a hold of the information to prove that they do exist. And we're going to get to the bottom of it, dadgummit, whatever the truth may be.
And joining me now, one of the witnesses who will be testifying to Congress on Wednesday, former Navy pilot and also co-founder of Americans for Safe Aerospace, Ryan Graves. Ryan, what exactly do you expect you'll tell this congressional investigation?
Well, I'll be looking to share the experiences that I had as a Navy F-18 pilot. I'll be looking to share what has progressed in this conversation since the 2014 timeframe when we first started spotting these objects. And I'll be looking to share just how big of a problem this has become for other military aviators and commercial aviators as well.
You don't call them UFOs, you call them UAFs, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, right?
UAP, close.
UAPs,
yes, unidentified anomalous phenomena. And yeah, anomalous is the key word there. We're not tying this to the old terminology such as flying or to the air. We are seeing these in the space domain, the air domain, underwater. And so this is really a first principled approach to look at this agnostically without all the cultural baggage that there has been in the past.
I've talked to some experts in this area who say it could be an earthbound enemy or opponent who has some very sophisticated drones, basically, that they're putting up in the atmosphere. Is that possible?
Absolutely. For me and for Americans for Safe Aerospace, we treat this primarily as a domain awareness gap. It's a matter of national security that we understand what's in our airspace. And it's a matter of aviation security and safety that our aviators and our air crew know what's in front of them when they're flying around.
So when you were flying an F-18, what did you see?
Well, we still don't know. We never really were able to draw a conclusion on what it was. But what we were seeing were objects, primarily spheres, that were traveling anywhere from a completely stationary and very high winds to order of Mach 2. We're seeing these objects on a near daily basis, and they would be out there all day. We still don't know their origin, what their intent was, but we eventually had to start modifying our training so that we wouldn't hit one of these objects, and they were getting pretty close.
We are watching some of the videos that the Department of Defense has released. Do the videos give you any answers as to what we're looking at here?
Unfortunately, the videos that have been released are primarily unclassified and low-resolution images. The fact of the matter is that most of these images were gathered through the use of sophisticated radar systems that allow the camera systems to get in close in order to be able to see. So I'm a skeptic myself. I would like I would like the general public to be able to see some of this more detailed information so that it can show the different behaviors over time. And that's one of the things that we're pushing for at safeaerospace.org is transparency on this topic. We believe the data deserves to be out into academia so that others can study this and we can start to reach those conclusions about what these actually are.
We apparently are going to hear some testimony this week from, I believe it's David Grush, who is supposedly ready to say that he knows of evidence of non-human spacecraft being held by the Department of Defense. Are you willing to go that far, or are you just looking for an explanation as to what these things that you've seen might be?
Well, my personal experience and the experiences from aviators are very pragmatic. They're dealing with this in the context of their professional aviation experience. David Grush's experience are different. He was tasked and a member of the UAP task force that ultimately arose because of the greater reporting from pilots. And during his investigations, he came across various materials and evidence. And so I've heard him say publicly, like others. And so I'm interested to hear what that evidence is as well. From my personal experience, my personal case, I can't speak to that side of the conversation.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fascinating hearing to watch, and we'll look for you this week. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
How about the tic-tac video? Something's zipping around, and you can hear the pilots on their mics saying, you know, what is that? This thing it looks bizarre. You know, what do you think is out there?
Well, it's clearly, you know, if it was Russia, they wouldn't be bogged down in Ukraine right now if they had that technology. And of course, if it was China, they would control us more so than they do right now. If it was us, we would rule the world. And obviously, you're left with the one other conclusion: is it's something that's not of this world.
UFOs in next week's House Oversight Committee hearing is Jeremy Corbell. He's an investigative journalist and co-host of the Weaponized podcast. Jeremy, it's really great to have you with us here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so these three witnesses, they've publicly made strong claims, right? We're talking about multiple sightings of UFOs and, in one case, government possession of a spacecraft of non-human origin. That's his words. That was obviously groundbreaking and, frankly, kind of alarming for the American population to hear. But what new information do you think we can expect from this next week's hearing? Or is it just really going to be a repetition of what we've already heard over the past few weeks?
Well, first of all, these are not just claims. We have corroborative visual evidence for a lot of what has been told. You have multi-platforms that are capturing UAP or UFOs that are corroborating the eyewitness testimony. So you have to understand, these aren't just claims. Some of them are, and I'm hoping to learn more about that come the hearings on Wednesday. It's going to be pretty exciting. But some of this is corroboration. So we know, for example, that in 2004, when Commander David Fravor engaged a UFO for the United States military, that was captured on a multitude of sensor systems. So this is a really exciting moment where you get to hear first time in history, directly under oath in the congressional setting from firsthand direct eyewitnesses in Commander Fravor's position, someone who chased a UFO for the United States military.
Right, and I think so much of the uproar when people think and talk about this story is this secrecy or, in some people's minds, an actual cover-up. So I want to play a little devil's advocate here with this argument that the military isn't necessarily obligated to release everything to the public if it's going to preserve national security. So with that argument in mind, do you think any lack of transparency could be justified on those grounds?
Not at this point. I think it's total BS. I think at this point, the public needs to understand the truth about what UFOs or UAP represent to humanity. Hiding behind national security, it's old school, it's old hat, it's not where we are anymore. You can tell the public the truth. They deserve to know the truth. We have a right to know, a need to know, and I feel a duty to find out. Now, some people are arguing that this is like private industry or some tech we've created. UFOs have been around since the beginning of recorded human history. They've been outpacing, outmaneuvering, and outperforming anything that we've ever had. And I will say that if UAP is private industry, if UFOs are private industry, Elon Musk should be asking for a refund at this point. It's hilarious. This is something that's been with us for a long time. It's time the American and global public learn the truth about what UFOs and UAP represent to humanity.
And Jeremy, you've really been on the front lines here, even releasing some videos, what you call Pentagon-confirmed UFO videos. So I want to know about your involvement in this upcoming hearing. Have you been helpful supplying any of the material that we expect to see, or where do you currently stand in the work that you do?
Yeah, I don't call them Pentagon confirmed. They are Pentagon confirmed military film videos that service people have leaked to me and George Knapp, my mentor in journalism. We put out to the world and they've been confirmed. Are we contributing to this? Oh, yeah, substantially, not just in the organization, but also tangibly. We will be putting something into congressional record, which I think will be really helpful for the public to kind of understand what's going on with UFOs. Because look, I don't know the ultimate truth, but that's the problem.
Yeah, and I mean, every single video that we see is kind of alarming, a little bit freaky, depending on what you see. So it really gets people thinking, and frankly, they get a little bit worried. In your opinion, do you think UFOs, UAPs are actually a risk to the world's population? Are we being threatened right now in any way?
Strategic surprise is the risk. The risk is us not knowing what is 360 around us at all time. The truth is never a risk. The risk is not knowing. So at this point, we have to avoid strategic surprise. We need to be honest with the American public. And I'll tell you, they know a lot more than they're saying, and hopefully some of that comes out in this hearing. But that's the real risk. The real risk is not transparency. Transparency is the remedy. It is the medicine.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I know so many eyeballs are going to be watching this hearing. And of course, News Nation has special coverage of it. Jeremy Corbell, thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, it's true that we have been in contact with your government and heads of power. It is also true that we have been It is also true that agreements have been made and kept secret from your people. It is also true that in the past, some of your people have lost their lives or have been badly hurt to protect the secret. Our hands had no part in this. We contacted your leaders because your planet is in grave trouble. Your leaders said the vast majority of your population wasn't ready for anything like us yet. So we made time agreements with your leaders as to when your people would be made aware of our presence.
The biggest takeaway for folks to understand is that things are happening on it's not a disclosure, it's a scheduled dissemination. And so certain things have to be set up before other things can be revealed.
Now, does the military know how to do this and all? Yes, they have known for a long time. Do the civilians know how? No. It's a time-released schedule. Is it now? Can I release it? Yes.
Am I wrong to have sensed a little bit of urgency in this as well?
There is a sense of urgency because, people said, well, why now? Well, because it's not on our time scale, not on our timeline. It's not up to us. They're here, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. They're here. The question is why? What's the purpose? We need to start asking ourselves some pretty direct questions about this topic. There is a sense of urgency because every day that we fail to acknowledge and recognize what's really going on, we stay in the veil of darkness. This is real. This is here. This is now. Our country has already acknowledged. I hate to say this, but disclosure's already happened. We now have the acknowledgement from former and current directors of national intelligence and CIA and presidents and everybody says, yeah, it's real. It's here.
That's
right.
A scary thing.
Well, I think the dialogue we're having now in this country, even with the recent legislation that passed through the legislature and is on its way up to the president's desk. Even with that, we're kind of preparing the U.S. population, at least, and by extension, the world population, into that reality that there is a presence here, and that we need to explain this presence. Because if they show up and we continue to do what we did before in previous decades, and they show up, there will be mass panic. But if you understand that these are real, and we have 5 years from 2022, or maybe now 4 years, if they come in 2027, for the U.S. government to prepare the people about what is up there. And in many ways, I think the word got out within the government that they're showing up in 2027, and we better be prepared. And if not, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do.
if our guys are going to, our representatives are going to actually start using the phrase non-human intelligence, they're not doing that, as you point out, because it's a lark. They're doing it because they've heard something that makes them believe right now that there is non-human intelligence. The second part of this that disturbs me, though, is there seems to be a rush to now try to talk about it. So after years and years and years, decades and decades and decades, where this has all been kind of pushed aside and nobody dared speak the word alien or extraterrestrial, let alone non-human intelligence, now they're all starting to do it. And they're doing it fast. And they're talking about hearings that we'll be talking about in a moment that are coming up fast. And they're going to have some shocking things in them. And the only thing I can think of is there's got to be a reason why the powers that be in Washington, D.C. are starting to say, we need to actually say the words out loud, and we need to get language in right now to get this taken care of. And I'm concerned, Ross, that at the end of the day, the only thing that would make a politician do that and act in that sort of enhanced way where they're in a hurry is that there's some bad news involved in this. And I don't know exactly what it is. And I know that you don't know exactly what it is. People are talking. It's hard to sort out what the sources mean or don't mean. But, you know, as I said, Chuck Schumer was and has been a cautious man in many cases. And I don't think he'd be talking like this and pushing this if he didn't think there was a fire behind his back pushing him to do so.
Look, I've got a pretty clear idea of what the government knows, and I can understand why they're moving to expedite. Yes, there is a constraint of time. The government knows that it really does have to tell the truth to the public after years of treating this subject with derision and ridicule.
But we are rapidly moving to a place where it's not about proving they're real. It's about understanding them and trying to analyze what it's going to mean for the future that we're all about to live in. And I have to say, candidly, in this last month, honestly, folks, I've had more than a few moments where I literally just have to sit down in my quiet house and start to contemplate what's really happening here. And what does it mean to me? What does it mean to you? What about my family? You know, I have children. What's their world going to look like? Is this world going to be a better one or a worse one? And frankly, is there anything that any of us can do to impact that? I just have so many questions swirling around. And I know a lot of you must be starting to feel the things that I'm feeling, where you ask yourself, what's happening? Is this real? If this is real, I can't even believe this. I feel like it's time for us to look to the future, even as we cover this story in the press.